The Hispanic influence in the US has brought salsa dance to the American audience. Everybody loves salsa. Dance venues rarely lack popular salsa tunes or salsa fans. Most Americans think the Puerto Ricans and the Colombians brought salsa to New York City in the 1970s. To these Americans, the truth of salsa's origin might be a little surprising.
I took some salsa lessons at a club. But before the salsa lessons, there was a lesson in Rueda de Casino. And that's where I fell in love with the group dance that the Cubans do. And for the past 12 years, that's what I've been doing.
Jose Barreto is a well-respected salsa teacher and a Cuban culture expert in Boston. Born and raised in the United States, he has traveled extensively in South America and lived in Spain. After teaching Spanish in high school for 35 years, Jose decided to dedicate his free time to teaching salsa. His classes are full of ambitious students seeking to master tricky and beautiful moves.
1, 2, 3, 5, 6, 7.
Through teaching and travel, Jose has discovered more fun about the origins of salsa.
Salsa begins in the 1970s in New York, when the musicians from Puerto Rico and Cuba and Colombia, they gathered together, and the music industry wants to sell records. They want to make a lot of money, which is normal in the United States. So they have this thing called salsa, and some of the dancers, they develop their own style. Casino happens in Cuba. Casino happened in the 1950s, 20 years before salsa started. Why? Well, the embargo closed up things, and the development, the changes that happened in Cuban dance stayed in Cuba. Same thing with the music. As it developed, it stayed in Cuba. It didn't come to the United States. The truth, as I understand it, is both salsa, modern music, casino, modern music, timba, they come from the music of son, the dancing son, which was from earlier in the 20th century in Cuba. Cuban culture, Cuban music, Cuban dance is not very popular in the United States, except for areas like Miami, where there are a lot of Cuban centered population. In Boston, in the dance community, it's pretty much what we call a salsa world. And that's the music that is played in clubs. That's what's popular at the universities. The Cuban music and Cuban dance is not.
The United States imposed a commercial, economic, and financial embargo on Cuba in 1960. Almost a year after the Cuban Revolution deposed the corrupt Batista regime. The embargo prohibits American businesses from conducting trade with Cuban interests, and it is the most enduring trade embargo in modern history. The blockade has also affected the development of Cuban dance. Because of the embargo, Cuban dancers and artists could not travel to major dance venues in New York and elsewhere in the United States, where Latino dance was growing rapidly. Instead, they stayed in Cuba and nurtured their own form of dance. It came to be known as casino. To find out more about the difference between the Cuban salsa scene and the American one, I decided to go to a salsa dance school in Havana. I found one online and corresponded with the school manager Eric Morales. Then I eventually went to Havana, the capital. I met Eric outside of his salsa school named Salsa Board a Cuba.
Estoy trabajando como profesor de baile hace 4 años. 4 años porque antes era bailarín profesional en el Ballet Nacional de Cuba. Y ahí me empecé a impartir clases en la Casa del Son, una buena escuela que queda muy cerca de aquí, en La Habana Vieja. Y entonces después hice mi propia escuela. Ya hace 2 años que tengo mi propia escuela.
Eric Morales runs a small salsa school with his friends on the corner of Opera Pia and Bonanza Street in Old Havana.
We have in the school, for example, 10 teachers, 5 women, 5 men. We are professional dancers also because we show our talent in different places. You know? We do the choreography, we make a choreography and we dance in different places. And we work from 9 o'clock in the morning to 7 o'clock in the afternoon every day, Monday to Monday. This is, you know, we open every day and we have a student every day. For us, it's very good job, very good work. If the student feel happy, I will feel happy also. And we feel happy, they feel happy, you know. For example, in the school, we offer salsa classes, Spanish lesson also. We also offer lesson of music, percussion, something like this. And all the students when come here with every type for learn, they feel happy, you know, for music, for the massage, for the Spanish lesson, salsa lesson, bachata, kizomba, rumba, we teach everything.
Their students come from all around the world, including Finland, Germany, and the UK. Dance classes are usually held during the day, and at night, the teachers take the students out to the clubs to practice what they've been learned during the day. Jackson Medina joined the school as a salsa teacher 3 years ago. He believes that before taking salsa lessons, many foreigners dance differently from native Cubans.
Bueno, sí, hay muchas diferencias, porque, por ejemplo, los europeos no tienen el mismo ritmo de los latinos. Muchos latinos bailan con el ritmo de nosotros los cubanos, pero los europeos no. A los europeos hay que empezar enseñándolos a mover su cuerpo. Que estoy diciendo que los europeos bailan muy diferente a los latinos, porque muchos latinos bailan como nosotros los cubanos. ¿Cuál es la diferencia de esos países? Imagínate tú. Ahora, ¿cómo fue? Se conectó el chip de adentro. Bueno, a ver, ¿por qué puede ser? Porque quizás no tengan el tiempo como para escuchar una música correctamente, escuchar la clave, digo yo, que es el tiempo que sí tenemos nosotros, ¿entiendes? Para bailar todas las noches, cuando en Europa no pueden bailar todas las noches.
Ironically, though it has been harmful to the Cuban economy, the U.S. embargo has helped to preserve unique Cuban cultural traditions such as Cuban salsa. Since the Second World War, the United States has exported its popular culture around the world. U.S. styles of clothing, food, film, music, and dance have altered or displaced local traditions in a lot of countries. However, Cuba has experienced less American cultural influence than many other countries due to the blockade. Roger de la Fuente is a Cuban filmmaker, painter, and musician. Just 1 block away from the famous and crowded Obispo Street, he opened his own gallery with his friends at the relatively quiet edge of the O'Reilly Street. Roger has been a Cuban nationalist and a cultural enthusiast throughout his life.
The salsa was a brand invented by the New Yorkers to import the Cuban music and make it commercial. But originally, the son, which is the base of the salsa, it is made in Cuba. It is the same story of the cohibas. That now they are selling cohibas in US, but they are made in Dominican Republic. It is the same story of Havana Club, that they make Havana Club in US, sell them there, but in fact, the Havana Club factories and the ones which is the main brand, the brand made in Cuba, is our brand, is made here. So Salsa had the same experience when they wanted to become the song commercial, and the Americans and the Puerto Ricans in New York wanted to make a commercial brand. They call it Salsa, and with that story began, I think it was in the 70s or 80s, they began the whole story. But the song is the base of the salsa, and the song is originally from Cuba.
El origen del son fue desde el danzonete, ¿ok? Un baile que se llama danzonete, y entonces a partir de ese baile que se llama danzonete se quiere crear una cosa más rápida, un ritmo que sea más rápido, que haga bailar más a las parejas, porque antes se bailaba danzón, que es un baile muy suave, donde no se utilizan muchos movimientos. Después se creó el danzonete, que es un poco más rápido, y ahí el son, que fue para darle más movimientos a las mismas figuras que se hacían en el danzón en aquellos tiempos.
Music and dance have been used as tools of propaganda and as mobilizing factors in rebellions and revolutions. In the case of Cuba, traditional music and dance are particularly tied to politics, as they have been preserved in part by policies of the Castro regime. For example, the Cuban government offers subsidies to artists, dance clubs, and musicians. It also provides Cubans with free education. According to Roger, the Cuban government's efforts to preserve traditional culture are part of a broader mission to educate the Cuban people.
We have free education, healthcare. The educational level in Cuba is pretty high. The cultural level is very high as well. And money or economic levels don't make the people even happier, better, or worse. It's the whole story of the complexity of having education, healthcare, incomes. Well, we hope that the government is pushing for a lot of economic reforms, and hopefully the economy will grow. You know, even this year they say it's gonna grow 4% for the very first time. Healthcare, education, cultural level, and at least these are the biggest achievements of the revolution, Cuban Revolution, and the biggest achievements, social achievements that he has made. To keep them is hard because a lot of resources from the exports of Cuba have to be destined to keep this kind of social achievements. It's expensive to keep free healthcare, free education, and give such a support to culture. But at the end of the story, it is something which is to be controlled by the governments. They should give this because they have to regulate this kind of social services, you know, everywhere.
When I walked around Havana, I saw poverty. Coming from a third world country, I know the effects that poverty can have on people.
It's very chic country for the tourist people, because for the Cuban people it's normal. For example, everything is very cheap, the food, the clothes, everything is very cheap. But also our salary is very down salary, you know. It's not high, it's not too much. And for us it's normal, like, you know, like in all the country, everything is expensive, but you have good salary sometimes. It's the same. Here is the same.
Despite their poverty, Cubans surprised me with their unexpectedly positive attitudes and strong cultural sense. I couldn't help but wonder, with so few material possessions, how do the Cuban people remain so positive about life? At Roger's art gallery, I met a half Cuban, half Ukrainian man, Anton. He told me a story which helped to answer my question.
There's a guy under a coconut tree in Cuba. There's a guy under a coconut tree. He's just sitting there, having some fresh air, having a cigar, whatever. Picture it in your mind. Comes a rich guy and says, "Hey man, why don't you get coconut from the coconut tree, sell some cocktails, and then get some money to hire people to sell more cocktails, and then get some coconuts and plant some more coconut trees. And the guy says, what for? The rich guy says, for you to have money. Well, but then you could plant some more and more and more coconut trees. And the guy again says, why? Because you could have some more money. What for? To be spending all day under a coconut tree and doing nothing. I'm doing so.
This metaphor not only reveals a reality of life in Cuba, but also suggests one possible reason why Cuban salsa has developed its own highly unique style. Just like Cohiba cigars, Cuba is infused with a strong cultural flow that inevitably pushes Cuban music to the spotlight.
I don't like to leave Cuba, never in my life.